We are delighted to be joined by Bintou Keita, who you know is the Secretary General Special Representative in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and also the head of the peacekeeping mission there. So without further ado, while people stream in slowly, we will give you the floor, Bintou, and then you'll take some questions. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and good afternoon to everyone. I believe a few days, Wednesday, we were in the Security Council, third urgent meeting on the situation in Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I'm sure a number of you have followed, and clearly we as MONUSCO, as the head of MONUSCO, I can talk about the ongoing efforts that the mission is doing to fulfill its mandate. And this in spite and despite of the challenges on the ground. First, let me begin by reaffirming MONUSCO's unwavering commitment to its obligation under international humanitarian law to protect unarmed individuals seeking refuge in its bases. Following the fall of Goma on 28 January, more than 1,400 high-risk individuals have sought protection, including civilian women and children. The mission also continues to respond to calls from human rights defenders, including women human rights defenders who are threatened or at risk of being attacked. Despite significant pressure for M23 to hand these individuals over, MONUSCO has remained steadfast in ensuring their safety and security. However, the current situation is unsustainable due to the sheer number of individuals under our protection, managing with difficult living conditions and limited supplies for longer than anticipated. MONUSCO urgently calls, and I insist, MONUSCO urgently calls for a safe, dignified, and internationally supported solution for the transfer of these individuals to an alternative secure location in full respect of their rights and choices. The continued occupation of parts of North Kivu by the M23, supported by the Rwandan Defense Forces, has severely constrained MONUSCO's ability to fully implement its mandate in the province. Freedom of movement restrictions, including roadblocks and 48-hour advance notification requirements, prevent the mission from protecting civilians and carrying out life-saving operations. Despite these challenges, MONUSCO continues to support SAMI DRC troops whenever possible by facilitating the supply of essential goods and medical evacuations in North Kivu. Unfortunately, the operational challenges MONUSCO faces have been compounded by misinformation, disinformation, and hate campaigns, which deliberately distort the mission's role and actions and put the lives of peacekeepers at risk. Despite the challenges in North Kivu, MONUSCO is maintaining its mandate and its core mandate, which is about the protection of civilians in Ituri and in the Grand Nord in Beni, in North Kivu. Our peacekeepers are protecting hundreds of thousands of internally displaced people. The arrival of the newly appointed force commander in Beni and Bunia is a demonstration of our continued resolve to provide leadership and operational oversight in these volatile regions. Just as examples, in recent weeks, MONUSCO immediately responded to the Codeco attacks in Jaiba, in Jugu territory, Ituri province, taking measures to strengthen security for civilians in the area with the establishment of 2 temporary operational bases to prevent the escalation of intercommunal violence and protect civilians. Moreover, another example in North Kivu, the Grand Nord, MONUSCO provided protection to 204 civilians in Eringeti, North Kivu, reinforcing our mission's commitment to shielding vulnerable communities from ongoing threats. Let me reiterate MONUSCO's urgent call for an immediate ceasefire and an end to hostilities without condition by the M23, whose military actions continue to destabilize Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and threaten regional security. We call on Rwanda to end its support to the M23 and to respect the territorial integrity of the DRC in line with the commitments made in regional peace processes and the latest joint summit, EAC and SADC, as well as the latest head of state summit in African Union Peace and Security Council, and of course, including the continuation of the Luanda and Nairobi initiatives. At the same time, we urge all armed groups in Ituri to stop their atrocities against civilians and fully commit to the PDDRCS, which is Disarmament, Demobilization, Community Reintegration, and Stabilization Program, which we as MONUSCO support. MONUSCO also strongly condemns the continued activities and atrocities committed by the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, whose brutal attacks on civilians have caused immense suffering in Eastern DRC. Let us stop a moment and condemn the intolerable degree of suffering that this conflict is causing to the people of Eastern DRC, including women, girls, and young people, with cases of harassment, conflict-related sexual violence, and killing and forced recruitment of children. There is no military solution that will end this suffering. Peace, security, and development in Eastern DRC require an end to violence and a commitment to inclusive dialogue and reconciliation. To achieve this goal, the role of women from civil society at community level and in leadership positions should not, and I insist, should not be ignored. And the call of Congolese women for peace must be heard. MONUSCO will continue working alongside the Congolese government, regional partners, and the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo to pursue a path towards lasting peace. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Bintou. We'll take some questions. Sherwin, and then Amelie.
Ms. Keita, Sherwin Briceby, South African Broadcasting, and thanks on behalf of the UN Correspondents Association for speaking with us. It's pretty close. Can you hear me? I hope so. 2 questions. Do you have a better understanding of what the ambitions are of M23 in Eastern Congo? Do they want to march on Kinshasa? What is the disposition and the understanding of the Congo River Alliance? I mean, what is MONUSCO's understanding of these groups? And could you just talk a little bit about your coordination with SAMI DRC? You talked about sort of, helping them with supplies, but are they confined to bases? Are MONUSCO forces confined to bases in the Kivus? You've talked about how your protection of civilians mandate is limited to the bases. Is that still the case?
Thank you. Go ahead, Bintou. Thank you.
Okay, so very public declarations and statements by AFC M23 clearly repeated over time and including last week shows that the intent is to go up to Kinshasa. And it is our understanding looking at what is going on in North Kivu, but also the onward push towards South Kivu. And we are understanding that they are pushing even further to Tanganyika. And just to remind everyone, we have withdrawn from South Kivu last year at the demand of the government of the DRC and in full agreement with the Security Council. We also withdrew from Tanganyika in 22 again, as part of the transition and the exit strategy for the mission. So when you see all these movements, you can understand that the intent is followed by continued action, which is not respecting the cessation of hostilities and ceasefire. And second, with regard to SAMI DRC, first of all, I try to communicate that it's only in North Kivu, in Goma, that we are in our bases, but then with the conditions and the requirements, we are still moving around. And SAMI DRC is also in its base, but this is in Goma. For all other places, we, the mission, are continuously performing our mandate of protection of civilians. In terms of the support that we are providing to SAMI DRC, you've seen, again, covered largely by the media, that we, the mission, have facilitated the repatriation of the bodies of the killed soldiers from SAMI DRC through Rwanda and until they reach their final destination in their countries. And when it comes to the regular supplies, we do as much as we can. This is why I say to the extent possible, because at times we are prevented from providing the support.
Thank you. Amélie?
Thank you. Amélie Bottelier from AFP News Agency. I have two questions. You mentioned the advances of M23 towards the south, but we're hearing also that they are marching or advancing in other direction, like towards Kisangani. Do you have any information about that? And my second question, we know that M23 have put in place parallel administration in the territories that they are controlling. What kind of role does the Rwanda forces play in these administrations, if any? Thank you.
Please, Bintou.
Thank you. When it comes to the installation of parallel administration, I don't have elements to substantiate the second part of your question, which is the role of Rwanda in it. What we see are the communication from AFC M23, and this is where we are stopping at the establishment of the appointment of a governor for Goma or a mayor for Goma, and we understand that the same is happening for Bukavu. So this is what I can say with regard to that particular question. And in relation to pushing towards Kisangani, so far the information available to me today is what I've mentioned earlier, is that we see the push because people who are coming to Uvira at the border, etc., are pushing forward to go to Tanganyika, and they are heading towards Kalemi. And so this is our understanding so far of the march, the way the movements are being conducted.
Thank you. Margaret, and then Pam.
Hi, Ms. Keita. It's Margaret Bashir with Voice of America. Do you have any idea on the numbers of M23 fighters in the Kivus, and likewise of the RDF? And do you have any comment on the Security Council's plans to vote this afternoon on a resolution, and your thoughts on it? Thank you.
So with regard to numbers, I will defer to the report available to everyone now, or the report from the group of experts. So I don't want to delve into that because There are people with expertise who have provided the information to the sanctions committee, and I think we can rely on that. Second, on the vote this afternoon of the resolution, I believe it's a good timing. I don't have insight into how this vote is going to go, but my expectation is that it's going to be voted unanimously.
Pam?
Well, that was helpful. Thank you, SRSG Keita. It's Pamela Falk from U.S. News and World Report. Could you describe the conversations you've had with Rwanda and particularly on their denial that they're helping M23? Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm fortunate that we have different stakeholders engaging at different levels, including members of the Security Council with Rwanda and others in the region. And as United Nations and part of the Secretariat, I have my colleague, the Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region, Wang Xia, engaging and doing different visits and passing messages in Rwanda. But I also have my colleague who is based in Libreville, Abari, who is the head of UNOCA and is also engaging and passing messages. So that's what I can say on top of colleagues in headquarters engaging with the permanent representative of Rwanda when requires.
And I'm just on the second part of the question on Rwanda's denial of help to M23. Any comment?
No, I don't have comment. I think Rwanda has to reply to this particularly.
Thank you.
In spite of all the 6 reports of the group of experts.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Hi, Kristen Salumi from Al Jazeera. If M23 does pull back, is the UN in a position to help? Are you confident that the local authorities are in a position, the DRC authorities are in a position to keep order if M23 withdraws? I ask that simply because I've been seeing people from the region on our air saying they just want stability, they just want to go to work. And I'm wondering if the international community can guarantee that if M23 pulls out. Thanks.
Thank you. Bintou, please.
Let me frame the question. So the withdrawal of M23 would lead to something where there will be no law and order. I want to say that the first element is for M23 in first place not to be in any of the places in Eastern DRC. So hence the call for the withdrawal of M23 based on all the statements that have been made in all the regional peace processes, asking for the withdrawal and asking for the return to where they started from back in November 21, if I remember some of the calls from African Union.
Thank you. Anyone online before we go back to the floor? Okay, Sherwin.
So round 2, Ms. Keita. Sherwin from South African Broadcasting. Can you just talk a little bit about the FARDC's capacity here? Given the breadth of the M23's advances, we're just trying to understand, given SAMI DRC's posture, MONUSCO's posture, working in collaboration with the FARDC, why would they overrun so easily? I mean, could you just give us, sort of paint a picture for us? And also, we often hear that, M23 are Congolese. So when you talk about withdrawing, where must they withdraw to if these are Congolese citizens? Must they cross the border to other countries? I mean, I'm just trying to understand where they should go.
So it is true, if we say M23 is Congolese, there is a framework within DRC to deal with all the armed groups, the Congolese armed group. First, in July 21, the head of state here has signed an ordinance which was based on lessons learned from 4 campaigns or programs of DDR, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, stating how moving forward from the signing of that ordinance, all the armed groups, Congolese armed groups, will be treated. And it happens that in, I think it was April 2022, April 22, I believe, where we've seen at the end, no, let me reframe. End of November 21, M23 came in the picture when it was not there. So you see the ordinance was signed July 21 from the government, saying this is how we are going to handle all armed groups in DRC, no amnesty, no automatic reintegration in the security forces, and clearly taking into consideration individuals, but also looking at the communities where these individuals will be reintegrated. And I'm talking about all armed groups. What happened is, down the line, there has been this tension between Rwanda and DRC on the basis that when the Nairobi process started in April 2022, I'm trying to remember my calendar, in April 22, and this was under the auspices of President at that time, Uhuru Kenyatta, there was a demand from DRC to support overall engagement with all the armed groups, including M23, to implement what was signed as the PDDRCS. Now, further down the line, at the time that meeting was happening, one faction of M23 was still fighting and going with the fighting, so somehow was expelled from the Nairobi process. But a number of other armed groups, Congolese armed groups, are still there. So personally, I believe, and I say personally, but everyone looking at the framework to operate with all the armed groups, Congolese armed groups, we say the Nairobi process is the one which has to handle everyone. So when I'm saying they have to withdraw, I'm talking about the communique of the 23rd November 22, which clearly says, and this was under the Luanda process, there was 9 steps which were saying exactly what needed to happen for M23 to be versed back into the Nairobi process. This has not happened because in spite of all the calls, 3 years later, we are still with this situation regarding M23 and the tensions between Rwanda and DRC, with the Luanda process continuing, and we all understand where we are with the latest communique of the joint EAC and SADC, as well as the one from the African Union Peace and Security Council. And at the same time, I believe that everyone is recognizing that the Luanda process and the Nairobi process has to be somehow, depending on who is talking, for us it has to be complementary in order to embrace the fact that we have one particular armed group, M23, Congolese, who has to be brought into the mix of the PDDRCS. So that's how I would be describing my understanding of this. So when you say that I said that they have to withdraw, for me it's withdrawal from the putting parallel administration, continuing the fighting and continuing expanding, taking localities, when indeed for 3 years back, if we look at every communique, it's a cessation of hostilities and ceasefire.
And there was a second half to that? FARDC capacity?
FRDC capacity. So again, this is something I don't want to go into more comments because it's extremely sensitive. And I think most of you have the full story, and I don't want to be putting more into this.
That was a master class in diplomacy. We'll go to Maggie, and then we'll close it up. Thank you.
Ms. Keita, it's Margaret again with just one follow-up. You said earlier that the intention looks like M23 wants to go to Kinshasa. Does the mission have some sort of estimate of how long that might take if they are not stopped in the sense that they've been taking territory in the Kivus? So if they continue their march, I know it's something like 1,500, 2,000 kilometers away, but if they continue towards Kinshasa, do you have an estimate of how long that might actually take for them to get there?
Well, if I had the answer, it will make my life very easier as the head of MONUSCO and as the designated official for safety and security for all United Nations personnel in DRC. I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you. Bintou, on that note, we thank you very much for taking the time. We hope to see you back here either in person or on screen. And bon courage to all of you where you are. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.